Alright. It's past time to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles, eh? It's really freaking hot here. We're in the middle of a big heat wave. So. And this is gonna be at least a 2.5 hour play sesh, so I need to have a drink handy. As you can see from the evidence, this was a run that I did record. Not that it's timestamped, but I know that it was this one. But lo and behold, I went a whole 2.5 hours with... The gameplay went pretty well, overall. I was mostly happy with the run, but between, I think I already said this in another video, but yeah, between Sonic 2 and then the initial test recording of this game, somehow my PC just decided, we're just gonna reset all of the audio mix to whatever the defaults were, in OBS and everything else, and I was like, really? So all the levels were just terrible. I mean, it wasn't the most unlistenable thing ever, but definitely far inferior to what I had achieved already. So. Now, I've already streamed twice today, as of this recording, so a grand total of almost 4 hours. I was playing Xenocrisis, and beat that for the first time, which was pretty sweet. Doing it with an audience, as small an audience as it may have been. So by the time you watch this, obviously now this is part 7. And I've already touched base on a few topics that, you know, I'm sure for some will be kind of hot takes, but, you know. So, as I've stated before, you know, this is a time capsule series. It's more than just a Let's Play, you know, it's my memories with the game, but also springboarding off of that. Like, talking a lot about the video game industry in general, my views on it, like, and kind of getting into ethical discussions that arise from it when we start talking about things like emulation and piracy and all that crazy stuff. But also conveying my story, like, there's some things that will always be private. Because, like, who cares? Like, there's a lot of details about a lot of people's lives that just... It's not that they don't matter, but it's like... Insofar as telling your story and what life lessons you hope you can maybe impart on somebody else from things you've learned the hard way, you know. When I talk about that kind of stuff, I like to put it in as general a scope as possible, so that it could potentially be to the benefit to a wider array of people. You know, of course there will always be some things that are more focused and specific, but... And some things like getting that extra life are more so out of habit. It's like, out of all the mainline 2D Sonic games, this is the one where I need to worry the least about stockpiling lives. But... I can tell you how mind-blowing this game was. Like, just the sheer amount of detail and just extra stuff you can like, poke around and explore in this compared to Sonic 2 is just incredible. And I was immediately, at a young age, blown away by the visual storytelling going on. You know, much more than previous Sonic games. But, you know, the earliest example is Angel Island being set on fire, and then from then on, you know, the whole stage is like that. And it really shows just how far Robotnik is willing to go to destroy Sonic. Like, in later iterations and different alternate Sonic universes, Robotnik, Eggman, if you prefer, is a buffoon. And he's still kind of a buffoon even here, but he's definitely scarier. Like, this is a guy that's willing to... definitely willing to kill and destroy, and... like, he really wants the Death Egg launched, like, to be able to roboticize the whole planet. On this run, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to go for perfects for all 14 of the emeralds that are possible to collect. But I pretty much always try to at least get perfects on the original 7 special stages. They're easier, and I'm more intimately familiar with them. So it's more of a personal challenge to continually just always nail perfects. And that is, for those who don't know, collecting every possible ring within the stage gives you a huge point bonus, and you can really rack up a lot of continues that way. I don't need them, but it's just part of how I now just play the game. I really like the elemental shields, but they do cheese certain encounters like this one. Not that they were very hard to begin with. But this is another part of the visual storytelling that's improved. Like, instead of each act just kind of being more enclosed, like one fades to black and then the other begins, this one just seamlessly kicks you into the next one, which is really cool. And also, the music changes. Like, it's still obviously part of the same zone, but it's been remixed or has some additional composition. I think that's a really cool touch. And then if you happen to be unaware or haven't read the description, this is being played on a real Genesis with the real 2 cartridges, Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, locked on. I'm using composite split and playing on a CRT. So part of this whole time capsule thing is like, look, with the technology available, this is basically as much as I can replicate for you how we played it in the 90s. So if you want to complain that it's not in 4K, you're in the wrong place. But the thing about the lock-on technology, it doesn't really seem like a big deal now, but at the time, you have to remember, there was no DLC as we know it, and even games that were able to be patched, you know, we're talking mainly just PC, that was still very limited. And then there were expansion packs and things like that, but this was really cool that Sega developed, just for this game, this whole new design, like, this whole new cartridge mold and tech, and, you know, patented it, you know, they researched, developed it, tested it, implemented it. when they didn't have to. Now, I'm not saying Sega was some kind of benevolent entity that, you know, wasn't, you know, trying to make money off of products. But a lot of companies wouldn't have done something like that, where develop this whole new technology just for the sake of completing their original creative vision. And yeah, you could also argue that if Sega hadn't gotten themselves into the marketing deal with McDonald's and wasn't succumbing to some self-inflicted pressure to get the game out by a certain deadline in 1994, that maybe they could have had the whole game launch in one big cartridge. And that maybe that would have been fairer to the consumer to just pay one price instead of buying 2 games. So I can definitely see, you know, there's some merit to that argument. However, I think if it had to go down the way it did, I think Sega made it right. And then they went above and beyond, and then added the ability for you to lock Sonic 2 onto this as well, so you could play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. Which, again, for people that are, like, into, like, ROM hacking and stuff, that sounds so trivial now, but then it was a big deal. And then you could even lock Sonic 1 on and unlock more bonus special stages. So, it may not have always worked out to everyone's best interest, and sometimes it was a financial mistake. But I like that Sega was willing to occasionally take profit, like their profit margin on the chin, and do something interesting for their customers. You know, obviously in cases like the 32X, it backfired tremendously. But I do still, even with that, I still appreciate the intent behind it and what was trying to be accomplished. It was just implemented in, like, the most boneheaded way possible. But Sega did something similar with, at least in North America, Virtual Racing was the only game released with the SVP chip, so it had its own special cartridge as well. Alright. Just making some notes here. Not something I make a habit of on these videos, but this is a long one, so... On games that call for it, where I need to write more than just a couple sentences down, I'll actually have a physical notebook next to me with a pen. And this thing called paper, I know a lot of you kids don't understand what that is. That, it's dead tree flesh that acts as a permanent receptacle for ink in the shape of letters. And numbers in the case of passwords for games that I want to write down. Not that I want Sonic to be in any danger, but if Robotnik just learned how to lead, same with the bombs, it'd be a different story. That's such a cool effect. Nice. And it's subtle, but you can even still see the jungle that's on fire behind the waterfall. Like, this, just a really nice layering of effects going on here. Oh, hi, Knuckles. You're still trapped, so... Yeah, alright. Some people say this is Hydro City or Hydrocity. I've always said Hydrocity because the two parts of the name are together, and there's not a hyphen or anything, so, yeah. What can you do? Plus Hydrocity just sounds cool, right? The water shield does kind of kill the hazard of this level, but even without it, this is one of those water levels that is not anywhere near as panic-inducing as something like Labyrinth Zone. Like, there are routes you can take that keep you pretty dry, and also, even when underwater, it's designed in such a clever way that you can still keep a lot of momentum going. So I think that's why this doesn't get as much hate as other water levels in classic Sonic. It is just better designed. Like, I don't mind Labyrinth Zone or Aquatic Ruin or anything, but I think this is an overall higher quality way of doing a water level. Which way did I go? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Oops. Zigged when I should have zagged, you know? And I switched back to the 6-button pad. There's no reason necessarily, other than that's what I was using to play Xenocrisis, and I just felt lucky with it. I think I still prefer the form factor of the 3-button controller, but the D-pad on this one is... it is better overall, I think. I don't know if one necessarily always wins over the other, in my opinion. I think it depends on the game. That's okay. I'm sure that was nowhere near the correct key, but who can say? I'm a drummer, not a melodic musician. Oops. There were a few things changed from the base Sonic 3 game to the Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Like, some of it was good, like, there were some weird bugs that were fixed, but Weirdly, some of the difficulty was toned down, like that extra life I just picked up. In the base Sonic 3 game, it's a spike. Or maybe it was a spring, but it was some kind of hazard. So. And honestly, I already thought this one was too easy compared to previous Sonic games. I don't see why someone thought any of the difficulty needed to be toned down, but, you know. I'll deal with it if it means some of the other more game-breaking stuff was fixed, so. And some of the more irritating little bits of music from Sonic 3 were overridden with the much more tolerable Sonic and Knuckles counterparts. Especially the invincibility music. It's still not as good as Sonic 1 or 2, but it's much better. Speaking of music, unfortunately, going forward from now on, any new officially supported releases of Sonic 3 and Knuckles are going to have a lot of music replaced, mainly in the Sonic 3 section, because of the licensing deal gone south, I guess, with the Michael Jackson estate. Because even though his name does not appear in any of the credits of this game, like, some of the music was composed by him, or at least in collaboration with him. Even though he's long dead, there's some kind of rights issue. Now, if it's just a matter of Sega not being willing to pony up a few bucks to renew the license, then that's kind of crappy. But I'm more sympathetic if it's a situation where the family isn't willing to cooperate, or wants just an absolutely outrageous, unreasonable amount of money. Then I could see why Sega would be like, okay, you know, I guess we're just not gonna bother, we'll just replace the music. But it's too bad. Like, no offense to whoever worked on the Sonic Origins music, but the stuff that gets replaced is just absolutely inferior to the original, and kills a lot of the vibe of the game, unfortunately, for me. Especially Ice Cap. You can't just replace Ice Cap Zone's music. Oops. Here we go. There. Now this one, I don't mind getting the initial 7 emeralds early, because in this you have much more control over going supersonic. Like, you're allowed to jump when you have 50 rings and not transform if you don't want to. So I can much more easily avoid accidentally using supersonic as a crutch. Look at all that parallax scrolling, yo, it's beautiful. I will try to get a shield real quick. Not that one. Or those. Oh, shoot. There we go. I'm not gonna waste too much of your time doing those, I guess I didn't even need to do that. Because there is another water shield before the final checkpoint of the level. Oh well. I don't know, it's just sad to me. So, yeah. I mean, the core Sonic games, they have been re-released to death. Like, even me as a fan of them, I'm like, okay, wow, like, every single console and just about every computer operating system has had a re-release of these of some fashion. I'm like, okay, we get it, but, you know, why haven't other Sonic games got the same respect? But, you know, I digress. But even with that being said, it still makes me sad that now, like, there are going to be some people who will look at something like Sonic Origins, and maybe that's the first time they've ever played it, and maybe releases like that going forward will be, like, to some people, that's just, oh, that's just Sonic, and they don't get to experience the music or certain elements of the game that were built with the Genesis in mind. It does irk me a little bit that now, you know, that's something that even has to be part of the discussion. It's like, oh, well, now which version of the games did you play? Because that now defines, like, what kind of experience did you have, you know? I mean, I might be overthinking that too much, but, you know, it's... Music's very important to me, and if we're having a discussion about preservation, you know, I think that needs to be, you know, a major part of the... Oh, shoot, I lost where those... Oh, there we go. Oh, and there's another cluster of 4. Should be... This one can get a little confusing. There we go. Lemonade. Is it done counting? Okay. Get that dirty dog, Knuckles. Up to his tricks. The water shield can occasionally make some of the bosses real easy. This is a long play session, so I will occasionally have to shift my sitting position. I don't have a gaming chair, I'm not on a couch. I'm not sitting on a platform that was made for sitting, so... Occasionally, the extremities start to want to fall asleep. Or get a little crampy. I'm recalling it was at about the same point in Marble Garden on my initial recording where I was feeling the need to discuss that I'm not a good orator, and I still stand by that. I do feel as though with the recent streams I've done, and I'm getting better, and compared to the initial videos that I recorded, I do feel a sense of progression, but I highly doubt I'll ever reach a point where I feel like, oh, I'm a better speaker than a writer. I mean, that's just not in the cards. This is still a big struggle for me, but I do feel a lot more comfortable. And I do think that I've gained at least a little bit more endurance as far as how long I can speak. Because at the beginning of this whole endeavor, if I had already streamed for about 4 hours, like I did earlier, and then tried to do this, like, forget it. Like, my voice would already be shot, and... I still have to remember to take full breaths and project better, but... I think I am doing better, at least, so... But even so, like... I ask you to be patient, and, like, I'm not as good at this as most streamers or people that have been posting this kind of stuff on YouTube for a while. It's still a pretty big deal for me to be doing this. Like, not just being on camera, but also speaking in front of the camera, like, forget it. It's like... It's like that old Seinfeld joke. Yeah. I'd rather be in the casket than the one giving the eulogy, as far as fears go. I think that's still mostly true. But, it's certainly easier to be a corpse. But we have some time to kill here. Insofar as me following up on what I discussed, especially in the Streets of Rage video, because I know there's going to be people that will watch that and draw the wrong conclusions very quickly about certain things I said. And it doesn't help that I filmed that the night before I read the news about Nintendo. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, Sega, as well as LEGO and some other companies, attacking Vim's archive. Like, specifically, all the old ROMs they had hosted. I think that's a terrible move. I think Nintendo has been consistently horrible to a lot of their fans, and especially the retro gaming community. And I think also, especially what they've been doing, like going after musicians who create covers based off Nintendo properties like Zelda, and actually demanding that they pull like their sheet music and all that stuff. I'm just like that's extremely petty, and that's just disgusting. And again, I'm ashamed that Sega stooped to joining them, at least as far as the ROM site attack goes. Sega's usually been friendlier toward emulation than Nintendo, but for some reason somebody in leadership there decided that this was a good move, and, you know, it's definitely not. Because, you know, I've said some things about emulation, like, you know, I'm always going to prefer original hardware versus software emulation, or prefer hardware emulation over software emulation. But at the same time, like, I recognize that software emulation has its place, and in some instances, it's definitely the best option. And, you know, I'm also staunchly anti-piracy. However, if we're talking about old games, that are actually abandonware, or you know, like nobody is trying to sell them in any capacity whatsoever. And the only official releases are on hardware that's no longer supported. It's kind of like, at a certain point, it's kind of hard to call exchanging ROMs for that stuff piracy. So I think it warrants a different discussion. I still think it can get really scuzzy, and I still think we need to have a discussion about, like, you know, where we draw the line between what belongs to the community, truly, where do we still need to respect the rights associated with intellectual property. And I also know that I probably, in some instances of things I've said, I possibly have mixed copyright and trademark. Like, those two terms tend to be synonymous, but not necessarily always. Like, there is difference between the two terms. Just to put that out there. The thing that I'm most against, besides piracy, as far as, like, taking from artists who are actively trying to sell their pieces of their crafts, and that's how they make their living, especially indie devs, like, that's one of the shittiest things you could do is to steal from them. And I have no respect for that. But in other areas, we can have a bit of a different discussion, right? Oh well. Oops. Get me back on there. So many colors. So many lights. It's very festive. I admit, this is the level that I did get stuck on the most as a kid. Not so much Act 1, but definitely Act 2, and we'll get to that part, because I know a lot of you probably already know exactly what I'm referring to. Come on. Aw, you bugger. I was just slightly too low. Oh, whoops. Alright, don't you die on me. Hey, you need to go over here. Should probably... Nope. Wow, okay. It's been a few years since I died on that sub-boss. I guess it's, gonna be a trademark that, at least on this particular series, when I do Sonic, there's gonna be at least one really silly, unnecessary death between me and a one credit clear. Oh, hey. Thank you. Okay. Should probably keep him more towards the middle. I think if you get squished against the wall, that's creates some problems. Well, now that that silliness is over with. See, you can just never get too complacent. Case in point. In point. Although, that is the first time I've ever died on that particular spike. Ah, shoot. Ah, shoot. Ah, shoot. Ah. You're gonna make me go the slow way? Alright. That's what I get for being a show-off sometimes. Okay. Did I just accidentally manifest some kind of energy to be like, oh, you referred to having trouble with this level in the past tense. We're gonna show you. Whoops. Oh, come on. Really? Really? Thank you. That's what I was trying to do the whole time. Alright. I'm not too far behind where I normally would be. See, these little platforms... the spinning cylinders, some are completely locked on their course, and some like this, you just press up and down to get them to move a certain way. If you're lucky enough to have run into some that like, and you played around with it and figured that out, then the part that I'm going to show you where a lot of us got stuck wouldn't have been such a big deal. The problem is twofold. One, you could go through the whole level and not run into one of those, and not realize that, oh, this one I'm supposed to move it myself. And the second problem is, if you play the game in the default way, where you have Sonic and Tails together, Tails can kind of screw up your timing, and it can also trick you into thinking that, oh, Tails is jumping up and down, and that's what's making the platform move, so I have to jump up and down, and that's not how you get it to move. But it's the only time that I got so stumped that I had to bring my dad in, and then he got stumped, and we actually, of his own volition, mind you, he's a very frugal cheapskate, actually relented to calling the Sega hotline for help, and we got a tip. Now, I mean, we were done with the phone call very quickly, so I'm sure it only cost him a couple bucks on his phone bill, but still, I just think it's funny. Like, in the Sonic 3 instruction manual, we still have the old notes from when we called the hotline. And that's the reason why I didn't get rid of that instruction manual, even though I could have swapped it out for a more minty fresh copy. Even though I stupidly wrote on the front of it with some Sharpie. The instruction manual clearly says Sonic 3 very plainly and boldly, and then for some stupid reason, when I was like 7 or 8 or something, I thought, oh, I need to write the word Sonic the Hedgehog 3 on this. Because the manuals were on a drawer, and I was... It's just one of those random things that you do as a child, and you look back like... For what reason could I possibly have thought that was a reasonable idea? So... It'd be what it be. Stage is being very uncooperative with me right now. Oh, hi. What a rascal. This one, you can't cheese quite as much. It's harder to bounce on him continuously. Just for brevity's sake, we'll see if I can do it here. Okay. The thing is, I know for a fact on this one, you can't do the short bounce continuously. There's something about his hitbox that resets itself. But if you do the long bounce when you hold down the button with the water shield, you can keep hitting him that way. I'm not sure if I would ever attempt to do like an actual speedrun of this game, as in going for any kind of a record, but I would like to get my time down on that zone. I feel like 5 minutes is just way too long. I've done it in 4 minutes, but I'm sure there's ways to do it even faster, and not using stupid tricks like level wrapping or things that are just straight up cheating. I have goosebumps all over from this music. It really pains me that it's no longer going to be in any official re-releases or remasters of this game from here on out. This one level, I wouldn't mind if it was longer. I admit, I'm kind of weak at my timing on the bosses that have like the spinny defense mechanisms. I think I mean, I'll review the footage. I'm pretty sure I was slightly too early. I need to be just very slightly more patient. The transition from interior to exterior in this level is especially beautiful. Hey, we get to see the ice tunnel again. That's cool. Eh, ice. It's cool. I'll see myself out. We don't need Batman and Robin quality jokes in this here channel. Oh, he mixes up the pattern after you hit him a couple times. Oh, shoot. Oh, well. See, when I landed on his little platform, well, I thought I had already landed, and that's why I hit the jump button again, because I was ready to... Oh, well. You can see how to defeat the boss without Supersonic. As much as I appreciate the one button does everything gameplay, I do wish they had assigned maybe a separate button for transform. It might have been really interesting if there was a way to use the mode button, because the mode button on this controller switches you between 3-button and 6-button mode. And imagine if you could actually change Sonic's mode with the mode button, but... just a thought. My poor legs are hurting. Kidding me? I did it again. I thought I was on the platform. Alright, I need to get rid of this. Nope. Come on, checkpoint it. There's one up this hill here. Yeah. Oof, thank you. Well, at least we get to see this bonus stage, which we might not have if I hadn't made that mistake. This is a very clever remix of the Sonic 1 special stages combined with a slot machine. I thought it was a cool way to have a throwback to the original special stage without being obnoxious. I mean, I appreciate the Sonic 1 special stages for what they are. However, I'm fine with them not being redone. At least in exactly the same form as originally done. Words, what are words? Tense, form, who can say it? They're not gonna be like those jackasses that sit in the alarm and infinitely defeat the little bird robots. Was it Flybot 6767, I think? If that's how you got your record high score, that's pretty lame. And I can say that because, you know, I let myself get suckered into achievement hunting, but specifically boosting, was like stupidest episode of my gaming life. Like, achievement or trophy hunting is one thing, like, I don't think trophies and achievements have ultimately been a net positive for the gaming industry. You can be a hunter of those in a positive and constructive way, but I think it way too easily lends itself to some pretty awful habits and behaviors. And with friends, you know, I used to hunt for achievements in dead games, you know, where the only way to get the points is to set up, like, boosting sessions, and it's like, other than the time that I spent socializing with my friends, when it was with friends and not with just, you know, a bunch of strangers who were just after pointless points, then it wasn't a total loss. You know, or if I was able to spend most of the time, like, listening to music or doing something else, but it came to a head with something like when Ubisoft was about to shut down the Assassin's Creed servers, well, specifically, like, the multiplayer for Brotherhood, Revelations, and Assassin's Creed 3. Like, I did play a few sessions with people that weren't trying to just boost for stats. That was just like, hey, you know, before the game is pulled offline, let's play some matches and experience the multiplayer as it was intended. And I didn't really care for it that much, but I do appreciate that at least it was different than standard, like, forced multiplayer that you got in a lot of shooters. And even games like Tomb Raider, the 2013 Tomb Raider, or Tomb Raider Survivor, I prefer to call it. Where it's like, why did we need competitive deathmatch in that game, you know? So at least Assassin's Creed was a little bit different. It at least tried to work with the social stealth aspects of the game, but I still didn't really enjoy it. And then it came to a head when I was, like, sitting in a circle with a bunch of dude bros online, and we're just in circles hitting each other for points to try to get some pointless stupid rank that, yeah, like, just to unlock an achievement. Like, no one cares. Like, if you cared that much about getting the platinum, then, you know, you would have done it legitimately a long time ago. It comes back to the entitlement thing that I brought up in a previous video, and going further with that, it's like, you know, games that are difficult don't owe you the ability to defeat them. It's not like a movie where you can... It's reasonable to expect that, hey, if I paid to watch it in the theater, I should be able to view the whole movie from start to finish. That's a completely reasonable expectation. But, you know, a game is a different kind of experience. It's interactive, and, you know, at least when video games first came about, not so much with modern gaming, outside of a few exceptions, you know, challenge has been taken out of the discussion. And when I believe it was in the Sonic 2 video where I talked about focusing on the positivity in gaming. And focusing on the fun, and not ruining other people's fun, for instance. However, one word I neglected to add into that equation was challenge. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be games that are accessible to people at different skill levels, but people who want challenge shouldn't... Like, it shouldn't be this rare, wild exception, like your Dark Souls, that only crops up once or twice a generation, you know? But said that to say that, you know, because you buy a game or rent it or try it or whatever, like, it doesn't owe you the ability to beat it. Like, that's something you need to figure out yourself. Unless the game is somehow fundamentally broken and that's what keeps you from beating it, right? You know, that like, there's exceptions, but... And same with multiplayer, it's like, you know, if you want to have an accolade, then, you know, become good enough to earn it. You know, if you modded it or cheated your way into getting it, or earned it just by, you know, playing with a few buddies after the game's already long since dead, then it's like, you know, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it doesn't really mean much anyway, but, you know. Like, what I did I can be proud of what I did in Gears of War and Halo 3. But, you know, I look at something like The Darkness, which was... The multiplayer in that was dead, like, years before I ever got around to even thinking about trying to get every achievement in it, and I was like, if I cared that much, I would've done it years ago, or it's like, oh well, you know, I guess I can't get completion. I used to let that bother me, but now it's like, who cares? Multiplayer achievements and trophies are the worst anyway, because they almost all mean nothing. They're almost all purely luck-based. Like, even if you're really good, like, there's still too many that rely on being in the right place at the right time, with teammates doing just the right things. Like, it's just... It's really meaningless, but... Anyhow, now we're in the Sonic and Knuckles stages. And this is a little transition piece that you didn't get if you just played Sonic and Knuckles by itself. It's a little storytelling bit here. And this is a completely new aspect of the game that you only get with the lock-on. So the Chaos Emeralds, it's not totally clear if they're acting as portals to the Super Emeralds, or if they are temporarily becoming the Super Emeralds, and then Sonic has to, like, get them again in their new form. And unfortunately, Sega and Sonic Team have been kind of back and forth as to, like, what's canon. And I have to research it more, but as far as someone told me that there was discussion that Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the locked-on version, is not canon. And it's supposed to be the separate games, is how it's meant to be interpreted. And it's like... but Sonic 3 and Knuckles locked on together was what was meant to be all along, so it's a little confusing. And it doesn't help that Sonic has now split into so many different continuities and universes. I mean, there's what? 4, 5, 6, maybe more different Sonic universes with different interpretations of the characters, different continuities, you know, different universes with different rules. it's all very confusing. Like, even as early as Sonic Adventure, in some ways it feels like a sequel to these games, but the more you break it down, the more you realize that it has to be taking place on its own separate world with a different Sonic that has some things in common with the world in the original games, but also has a lot of key differences. So it's all over the place anyway. My personal take is that Sonic Mania is the real Sonic 4, and that the 2D Sonic games, the continuity is just Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and then Sonic Mania. Well, Sonic CD, which takes place somewhere before Sonic 2. And then you could probably throw in games like Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble in the mix there, but... And I would even throw Sonic 3D Blasts. Because it has Knuckles in it, and he's friends with Sonic, it would have to take place after this game. But, yeah, that's as far as I take it. But, cycling back for a second, yeah, games don't owe you the ability to beat them, and as far as achievements and trophy hunting, a game doesn't owe you a platinum, or a completion, as Xbox people would simply call it. I mean, it sucks if you aren't able to get one simply because of a glitched trophy or something. Like, you know, yeah, that does suck, because that's somebody who didn't test it properly or whatever, but, again, my stance is that it's a metagame activity that can be positive. I think it's been more destructive than anything. And it's crept its way outside of gaming, like, even, like, my second job uses an achievement system, and part of me wants to say that it's cute, but, oh shoot. Oh well, we won't get it perfect on that one. Ow. I was gonna just finish it without getting the perfect, but I messed up my jump, so. Something similar happened in the test run. Or what would have been the final run if the audio hadn't been messed up, I guess. It just sucks, because in these stages there aren't as many opportunities to get Chaos Emeralds as in the Sonic 3 stages. The Sonic 3 stages are extremely generous with opportunities to get emeralds. I'll have to practice a few of these stages more. It's mainly the stage that I just failed, and then stage 4. And, I'm more familiar with certain quirks of the Sonic 3 and Knuckles stages, or I should say, have been familiar with them for a longer period of time, because although I did play Sonic 3 first, it was as a rental. I kind of ended up getting it backwards. Like, I got Sonic and Knuckles when it was brand new, but didn't own Sonic 3, so it was always a little disjointed, like, and I was always, like, chomping at the bit to get the complete experience, because, you know, the back of the Sonic and Knuckles box tells you about some of the added features, and it had a screenshot of something that, you know, was impossible with just Sonic and Knuckles alone. It's like, darn. Like, being able to play as all the characters in the entire set of levels was just something that's, like, I literally dreamt about it. And it wasn't until the following year, 1995, it was Christmas, I think, of that year. So it was a pretty long wait for me. Like, it was more than a year after Sonic 3 had released before I owned a copy and was able to lock it onto this. So I know the Sonic and Knuckles stages, to be fair, they are, trying to look at them objectively, they are harder than most of the Sonic 3 levels. However, I was playing this set of zones exclusively for a good while, so I think I'm a little bit more numb to the difficulty spike than others may be. I'm just gonna run through this one. There aren't enough chances left for me to really waste on trying to get perfects. Like, I will do, maybe on Twitch, like on a stream sometime, I'll make an attempt doing all perfects. And maybe I'll poke around the levels more and try to see if I can recall where some additional special stage chances are. That way I've got a little bit more leeway to play around a bit and try to get all perfects in a single run. Oof. Lemonade's one of those things where it's like, it's refreshing, it's simultaneously... I don't know. I think maybe if I had some ice in it, I chilled it, but it's so dang hot in here. It's like I've already lost all of the benefits. What a surprise! It's Robotnik that was messing with the weather. How cool is this quasi 3D effect in the... But these artists in the late stage Genesis and Super Nintendo games were freaking geniuses. I tell ya, like, figuring out how to take 2D and make it pop in the way they did. It's still stunning. So, turns out Wing Fortress Zone was a lot bigger than we realized. Used to freak me out a lot, thinking about Sonic being... if there's nothing below him, he's just hanging onto the bottom of the airship. It's always a little scary. Alright. Alright, I was giving my voice a brief respite, but something else in my outline I wanted to say. This calls back to a few things that I've already mentioned. It's like, you can be the nicest, most agreeable, humble, sweet, caring, giving person ever, and you could share something online and someone would still find some reason or means to give you shit. So one of the things I had to let go in publishing this series was a degree of intimidation. And because, you know, the YouTube comment section is one of the worst places on the entire internet. I mean, it's not about to be outdone by Twitter, but... Excuse me. You know, that's not to say that... You know, if I get something factually wrong in a commentary, that I'm unwilling to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see where I simply got a piece of objective information incorrect. But if someone's just determined to just be a troll and start an argument for the sake of arguing, because that's what they think the internet is there for, and what a lot of people think the internet is there for, like, they are not worth any amount of energy or time. It's like a quote I came across recently. It's like, you know, it's about 8 billion people, and if someone demonstrates through their words or action that they're not worth your time and energy, they've actually done you a favor, because then you could just move on to the next 7,999,999, oh, etc. People, too. See if they're worth your time. So it's not that you shouldn't care about, especially artistically speaking, improving your craft and continually giving a better and better presentation of what you want to share. However, there's gonna be some people that, like, you could make the best production ever, and again, you could be, like, the nicest person ever, and someone will still find a reason to say something stupid or, assholey. So I didn't necessarily want to do this one yet, but alright, whatever. I tend to feel more comfortable doing perfects on a few of these, so I'll kind of lean back on muscle memory for those, but... This one I'm still not sure, actually, if I... I might as well, right? Well, at least that one's out of the way. That's the one that makes me the second most nervous. Stage 4 makes me the most nervous. It's not even difficult, it's just one of those where if you go off your route, it's extremely difficult to get back on where you were. There's no open ground, or almost no open ground. You'll see what I mean when I get to it. So yeah, you know, just learn the difference between actual constructive criticism and people just being assholes. And don't listen to the haters. And if you are one of those people that really is among the nicest, gentlest, humblest, sweetest people out there, don't let any of these jerks steal that from you. Don't let them take your energy. Humanity needs you, not them. I missed. Oh well. Cha-ching. I was trying to avoid that very incident. Oh well. The name of parallax scrolling happened there. Give me my voice a little break. Bear with me. Okay, let's get... Where is it? I think it's this one. Let's get the one I'm dreading out of the way. Yep. Now I'm sure once I practice this more and figure it out, it'll be easy, because you just jump into the middle pit there and get your rings, and then you just have to find a good spot to jump back down and finish off this line of spheres, but... I'm sure once I figure it out, I'll be like, oh yeah, like, I could have been doing this the whole time, and it's easy, but right now it just... This is the only one that intimidates me a little bit. Just because there's... If you screw up, there's virtually no margin for error. You're on such a rigidly defined path to get the spheres. So. Aw, no points. But what if I needed more lives or continues? If all goes as it should, there won't be any repeats of the silliness we saw in Carnival Night Zone. Seriously, that second death, I've never touched those spikes before, and I was like, oh, okay. I've never missed that jump in just that particular way. I do like that this little fake-out sub-boss is a callback to Sonic 2, where it's like Robotnik springs the same kind of trap, but this time he's like, oh, okay. I've made it so the force fields will keep closing in on him, so eventually he can't outmaneuver it, but... somehow or another he didn't take into account that the laser blast would eventually cause the whole trap to destroy itself. But... Okay. Nice try, Doc. Except not really. I do appreciate Sonic's moxie. He just jumps right out of the airship and goes after Robotnik. I used to hate this level. It's still not my favorite by any means, but I respect it more. I still think the heat effects are really cool. I didn't make a pun that time. It was an anti-pun. might pull that off. There we go. Hey, hey. Oh, I totally missed that freaking special stage ring. It's the whole reason I went up to that path. Well, we need, what, 2 more? So... there are a decent number of chances in Lava Reef. Assuming that I am able to take the correct path, I think there's 1 or 2 more that I know I can get to in Sandopolis. I would just prefer to have a little bit more cushion. Now, this boss coming up, once you figure out the trick, it's really easy, but I do appreciate that at least, even within the sub-bosses, that Sonic team was throwing some curveballs our way. It's like most players, the first time I encountered this guy, I was just trying to just jump into him, and like, why isn't he dying? I think it may have been my dad that observed, like, hey, what if, what happens if you get him to jump in the sand? And I was like, oh. Sure enough. Just grinds them up. Oh, my voice is so haggard right now. This heat wave we're dealing with right now... oof. I don't care who gets pissed at me for saying this, like, if you can't acknowledge that global warming isn't at least somewhat of a thing right now, like, you are probably some kind of a shill. Or the ultimate ostrich. It's just one of the ways this timeline is all screwed up. But oh no, ghosties. These things did freak me out as a kid, I'll say it. And they really shouldn't have... It's not like I hadn't seen things like Boo in Mario, but I think even Boo scared me a little bit when I was really small. I can admit it. I just remembered there is one special stage in this Act 2 that is easy to get to, and it's totally all the way back there, wherever over there is. Oh well. There's at least 4 good attempts in Lava Reef that are easy to get to, so... Oh no! I haven't seen this glitch in a while. Every now and then, with the lightning shields, one of the rings it attracts gets pulled so quickly that it's like it just clips through everything. But eventually it does get to a point where Sonic catches it. It's extra crazy looking if that happens to multiple rings at the same time. It's like, whoa, that wasn't meant to happen. I think there may be a special spring up there, but... Not today, ghosties. Like Kevin McAllister with his furnace, I'm not afraid anymore. Even so, let's turn the lights on. Okay, got a little bit of strength back, but... Something I remember in the outline for this part. It's talking about how Robotnik is such an excellent stand-in for the corruption of technology and capitalism and all that fun stuff. The exploitation of any and everything for your own benefit. Like, he doesn't care what he destroys or who he hurts to achieve his ends and to feed his own ego. You know, we talked about ego before. He considers himself a genius, and, you know, technically that may be correct. However, he's so determined to prove his genius and so enamored with the idea that technology is better than nature, and that everything in the natural world exists for his subjugation. It's similar to the role that Saruman ends up playing in The Lord of the Rings, where he is seduced by the power of industry and doesn't care what in nature is to be destroyed to serve the needs of the army he wants to create and the power he wants to wield. I mean, ultimately, it comes back to power and control, and because what is money or technology run amok, but, you know, power unchecked. There was probably a more eloquent way to say that. I just think it's interesting that, you know, Robotnik is definitely a cartoon villain in so many ways, and isn't worth taking super seriously, but, you know, it's... I can definitely see where, at a young age, it informed me in a simplistic way of, you know, the kinds of people that deserve to be opposed. I grew up with a lot of that kind of thinking of that man has dominion over the earth bullshit. It's gonna be a hot button for some people, but, you know, that comes back to religious thinking, and which I think is, even if for people who don't consider themselves religious, or especially Christian, and even more specifically the American version of Christianity, even if you're not part of that through faith or participation in the church itself, like, those ways of thinking are still very permeated in Western society. The notion that nature exists for our exploitation. And that we are automatically superior to all other beings. Not realizing or appreciating that we're animals just like everything else. I missed the perfect, but oh well. That'd only be worth getting upset about if I had done perfects on all the others, but... I have enough continues, right? We're safe. Oh, I still earned a continue anyway. Like, look. Okay. That should be the next to last one. And fortunately, this part's kind of a gimme, because I think there's another ring coming right up. Yay, okay. I'll just let it go. A world to save. Sometimes perfection can just be left by the wayside. Get all the super emeralds, yo. Sorry, have to adjust again. My legs are getting really angry. Alright, this is the part that Sonic Team seems to not want to acknowledge any further, but Hypersonic. As the game apologist said, Hypersonic matters. That's a great channel to check out if you want more of a deep dive into Sonic lore and the different continuities and how weird some of it gets. And when I mention these other YouTube channels, I don't pretend to have any direct affiliation with any of them. It's just whether they're a big channel or a small channel or somewhere in between, you know, I just like to mention people making good videos, doing good work, and presenting interesting ideas. Or who are just good at being funny and entertaining. Whoops. I'm supposed to go into that little cubby. Oh well. At least I ain't dead. I'm getting a little tired, but it would be senseless to cut it off at this part. Like, if I was gonna do this in two sessions, then, you know, it would have been best to do all the Sonic 3 levels and then oh, come on. Then the Sonic and Knuckles levels, so I'm just gonna stick with it. But cool details, you can see the Death Egg in the background, and then as the zone advances, we'll get closer and closer to it. I think that's a nice little... another little visual storytelling piece that I think is really cool. Well, darn. My collection. It's sad when it happens to Sonic's rings. Not so sad if it happens to somebody's graded WADA collection. Oh, come on. Give me that. Really? It's not me being mad at the boss, it's mad at my own timing. I know better. It's also taken me almost 7 minutes to clear this level piece. I did get chased by that spiky boulder. I normally get past that. And more so out of habit, I was just going after, like, extra lives and shields and ring stashes, and I'm like, I don't need any of that stuff. But... it's funny, I'm sure after all this time and all the different playthroughs I've done, I'm sure there's still little secrets that I've have never in my life discovered in this game. I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could either spend an exhaustive amount of time picking apart every little secret I can in the levels, or looking up a map. It's not that I don't have an interest in finding more of every little nook and cranny of these games, but I've played these hundreds of times, so although I do try to... I still try new things occasionally, but there are a lot of times where I'm just simply just doing what I have practiced just so many times over and over again. I mean, part of it is how much I love these games, but also you have to remember that as a kid, when these games were new, you know, we didn't have a very big Genesis collection. I mean, it was slightly more than for NES, because our NES selection was very sad. Yeah, there were a few bangers, but it's still a pretty sad selection. So, had a little bit more going on with Genesis, you know, the Sonic games, Vector Man, Star Trek. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Should be a checkpoint coming up soon, though. But, yeah, that being said, yeah, there just, weren't that many games to go around, so... You know, when we rented a bad game, you know, obviously we knew, like, well, we're not playing that again. But the good stuff, you know, just replay it, and... You know, not all games, like, not all retro games automatically have... are not automatically better than modern games, and they don't automatically, they're not automatically better than modern games. But I tend to find more retro games better than more modern games. And I find that more often than not, they have more replay value. And especially in the case of games like this, to me they have effectively infinite replay value. There's some modern stuff that I never want to touch again. And that reminds me of the discussion about value in games. Like, I've always thought it's, quite frankly, one of the stupidest things that people make an argument for, is that, oh, well, if a game takes this many number of hours to beat, then it was a good value, right? It's like, I've always found that the dumbest argument. I mean, yeah, you could play a game that takes 40 or 50 hours to complete, you know, by whatever metric you want to use. But, you know, if it's 40 hours filled mostly with fetch quests, procedurally generated filler, you know, bloated cutscenes, unskippable tutorials, and just all sorts of other things that are just padding the runtime. It's like, yeah, are you really getting more value just because through stupid arbitrary reasons it took you longer to finish? Like, replay value has been almost completely thrown out the window. It's like, nobody wants you to replay the game because they just want you to get to the end game of whatever story it might have so they can start feeding you live service crap. I think quality, to me, always beats quantity. And I know there's gonna be those people that are, like, I read a comment on somebody else's blog today that said that very thing, like, oh, if I pay $80 for a game, it damn well better give me at least 40 hours worth of content. It's like, that's just such a, like, stupid thing. Like, I could set Pong on ultra hard and have a 30-hour match against the AI. That doesn't mean it's automatically a better value. I know that's not the best argument, but that's one of the funnier examples that I think of. And then games that are longer, but maybe are a quality experience, it's still a difficult thing to quantify. Like, okay, do I want to take a chance on Final Fantasy Rebirth being what I want it to be and not making me angry in some way? Since it's not really a remake, but more of a sweeto sequel. And do I want to spend the at least 100 hours it's estimated to take to complete that? Or do I want to spend a good 30 or 40 hours completing the entirety of the original game? You know, RPGs especially are difficult for me, and even where, like, I don't have the energy or the temperament that I used to play those long JRPGs. And what's more, even if it doesn't turn out to be actually true as of this recording, I'm still operating under the notion that there are fewer days ahead for me than there are behind. And I have to make a decision. It's like, well, do I want to take a chance on another game that sucks away 200 to 300 hours of the free time that I have allotted for gaming over a course of however long that takes, you know, spread across weeks and months? Or do I get to experience 4, 5, 6, 7 or more other games that are much shorter and that I might even want to play again, depending on how strong the replay value is? Like, how many more diverse and interesting experiences do I want to have? For sure. Even if one or two of them are a stinker, sometimes that could still be an interesting experience. Yeah, some of these dude bros act like we have infinite time. I mean, I get it. I used to play a lot of online multiplayer with friends, and you know, I was once more sympathetic to it. I was like, oh yeah, you know, if I'm paying $60 for a Gears of War game, then, you know, I do want the campaign to be worth my time. But it didn't have to be a minimum number of hours, because, you know, I knew that my friends and I were going to get value from playing the multiplayer, and then especially when Horde mode became a thing. But even if the $60 that I paid for the original Gears of War when it was new, even if I hadn't had the rich multiplayer experience that I did with it, which for its time was really good, and I don't have the stomach for online multiplayer anymore for a variety of reasons. even just the amount of times that I've played the campaign over and over, either by myself or with friends, it's totally worth it. Even if the campaign had only been 3 hours long. Like, if it's of sufficient quality, then, like, I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand the mindset of some of these people. But I just think that's, again, with the bosses with swirls. See, you have to wait just that, like, fraction of a second longer than you think you do. But that was too long. See, even me, for having played these games as many times as I have, there are still aspects I need to practice. I think over time, gotten too used to just being like, ah, well, shoot, I've played this far and I just want to beat the boss, so I'll just, even if I'm not doing it clean and taking a hit. Oops. Can we just have a moment for how beautiful this level is, though? And it has a great sense of progression, like the way the cloud formations change as you continue to ascend. And the music and the art design, like, there's a reason why this level has been brought back in some other Sega games, like Sonic Racing Transformed, for instance. See you later, Metal Sonic, or Mecha Sonic? Yeah, Mecha. Metal is the one we meet in Sonic CD. Which we will play, but it'll be a separate series, because even though Sonic CD does take place before this game and Sonic 2, I wanted to keep the Sega CD stuff separate. It's a toss-up because, you know, if we're talking original hardware, you can't play the Sega CD games without the Genesis attached, so I could see how someone would be like, well, those are still Genesis games. But I think there's some validity to that argument. However, I still ultimately want to keep Sega CD games in a separate playlist. Even though I will probably do them in the style of these videos, where, except for not being able to interact with me live in the chat, this is otherwise the same kind of experience you'll get watching me on Twitch. Alright. Was there no way to jump back up to this? Nope, okay. If you were Tails, you could get out of that, but yeah, Sonic can't. Okay. I don't normally take this route, but I'm experimenting a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna be so annoyed when I watch this footage. As I preview it for quality. Okay, you can tell that I am legitimately tired. Somehow my judgment of that timing is so drastically off. Okay. Jeez. As I said in the Turtles Hyperstone Heist video, sometimes I just have this knack for making the easy things harder than they need to be. But then I'll turn right around and do something that somebody else thinks is hard and make it look easy, and it's like, this. I'm also getting a little bit emotional, okay? Because, alright, you can laugh all you want, but you know, not this music right here, right now, but the stage music, it does hit some emotional chords. Like, I think that's... Even when we're talking about old hardware, old compositions, like, if the composition is good, then it pulls on the heart and the soul, you know? I think this piece of work here, it does a good job of... Did those reset? Okay, it was just a visual glitch, okay. It does an excellent job of conveying the sense of... It's kind of exciting and dangerous and energetic. That there's something in... There's something in the arrangement that conveys this sense of impending doom. Not in the same sense you would get from playing something more literally like, you know, the Doom soundtrack, but it's just like things have gone from kind of like a cheeky, almost whimsical bit of danger to like, oh, this is getting serious. Like, the world as we know it is gonna end if Sonic can't do anything. Like, even Knuckles had to capitulate, and he's turned the hopes of his home and everything he's meant to protect to Sonic. Oh, come on. I was just about to jump in. Really? Now that was just obnoxious. What? He must have... When he does that little jumpy thing, he must have a brief window where he's, invulnerable. Oh, I could have... There was a window, I could have hit him one more time there. I'll work on it. I'm just making sure it's still recording. I was gonna be like, oh shoot. Don't you dare do anything to me like, oh, we stopped recording an hour ago. Like, there's no reason it should do that. I just, you know... Sometimes Windows just does Windows things that don't make any sense. I know some people probably detest the upside down gravity sections of this level, but I like it, it's creative. And it doesn't really overstay its welcome. In my opinion. Speaking of gravity, we wait for it to do its thing here. But, going back to the music. Yeah, when it changes for Act 2, this might be where my brain is failing me. I don't know if it's... Shoot. I don't know if it's like actual key change, or if it's just modulation. It's not a night and day difference, but it feels like something went up just a little bit. The energy is just a little bit more intensified. I'll take the water shield, it's fine. I just want to have a higher jump capability. Irritation. Come on, here we go. Yay. Almost not yay. Ooh, we didn't get this special or bonus stage yet, so... I can have shield? Yay. Clearly, I needed more lives. We're almost at 69 lives. And I laugh, but not for the reasons you think. It's because the same thing happened in the... what ended up becoming the test recording. As soon as I noticed it and then mentioned it, something really silly happened. So it's like, okay, maybe it's not a good omen. But what I was saying earlier, sorry, I was getting a little My head's fatigued, my thoughts were getting a little bit more scatterbrained, but about the music, why it was emotionally affecting me, in what way specifically, I should have mentioned. It's, a sense of sadness, like, that Sonic is... It's no longer just kind of a cheeky rivalry between Sonic and Robotnik, where he makes him out to be a fool and then goes about his day and gets a chili dog or whatever. But, like, serious... In as serious as you should take a Sonic the Hedgehog game, right? But it's like... The music conveys that sense that, like, wow, if Sonic doesn't pull this off, like, the planet is doomed. Like, they're... Like, all of the animals and everyone else, and all of nature, basically, will be turned into Robotnik's machine slaves. There will be no more planet as we know it. Just missed him. I know there's a faster way to do this, I am being a little bit comfortable. Although, depending on how you get the rhythm and timing, you can just sit in one set of teleporters and keep getting strikes. And there's a little bit of luck involved, but there is a certain rhythm to it. I'm just... Since I'm providing a commentary, I'm trying to just do what I know works for sure. Even if it's a little bit too cautious. Really think about it, and what do you want to say? A philosophical point of view, like, Robotnik is taking this thing that's, like, one of the greatest sources of life and energy, and turning it into a weapon. Like, it's like the ultimate perversion of nature, right? And... getting goosebumps, partly because of the music, but also just thinking about, like, Sonic is saving the world, but also everything Knuckles and his people ever sacrificed to protect. And Hypersonic is, like, the ultimate wrath of the planet, coming to give Robotnik his final comeuppance. Hey, I think I did that slightly faster than last time. I think I was at 2 hours 30 at this point last time. No world record by any means, but a good run. Just some goofiness in Carnival Night. But it's a lesson learned. Oh. Sonic and Tails made a new friend. So, another little interesting thing about that I think goes deeper than a lot of people give it credit for in face value. It's like Sonic had access to the ultimate power in his universe, essentially, and he willingly gave it up. I think that is possibly the ultimate definition to me of the entire sphere of what we call good and altruistic and noble, heroic, is the voluntary surrender of power. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, like, in the name of pacifism, throw away an opportunity to have, you know, power to enact justice. Like, and Sonic sets the example of he only used the power he had to the extent that was justified and necessary. And not even justified, because that sets up the possibility of rationalizing something, and rationalization can lead to all sorts of ugly things, right? But he only used the power he had to the extent that it was needed, and then was like, I'm good. I washed my hands of it. I'm putting it back in its rightful place. Like, that belongs to not even Knuckles specifically, but his homeland. Like, the floating island depends on that emerald. And therefore all the life on it. And then who knows what else in Sonic's world that the Master Emerald affects, right? You know, we already saw how close we came to someone like Robotnik using the power of the Emerald to turn the entire planet into robots and machines. I just think that's a lesson worth considering. It's a silly little mascot platformer, but it does open up discussions for some interesting things, I believe. But here we go, everybody. That was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The complete Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as originally envisioned by Sonic Team. I still consider it the best 2D Sonic. Sonic Mania comes really close. In some ways, it is the better game. And then Sonic CD is my favorite, but I recognize that it has some strange flaws and quirks, and it, in some ways, lacks some of the polish that this title has. But there we go. This has been a terrifically long video. So I have ideas for the games that I'm going to do next, but it's a slight toss-up what Part 8 will actually be. It's kind of a choice between a few different games. It probably comes down to how quickly, after doing this, that I'm ready to do another action platformer. So we'll see, but thanks for watching the longest video to date so far, and appreciate everyone who's been watching. So thank you for watching. Thanks for playing, and we'll see y'all in the next one.